Hi, everyone, and welcome again to Chatting with the Reds. There's my wife, Teresa. She just left. You're laughing there, giggling, whatever she's doing. But today we're here on this Monday, allowing ourselves the opportunity to come before you again. A couple of days ago on Saturday, my family, the Pritchard Henry family, got together to celebrate the life of one of my cousins, Lydia Pritchard Henry. We gathered in Center City and we had a wonderful time remembering this wonderful woman. She lived to be over 90 years old, was married for 71 years, had 3 children, my cousins Ann, Kent, and Dean, many grandchildren and great-grandchildren. Hello, Apostle Morgan. And we had a glorious time together. In preparation for going to the ceremony, which was highly encouraging and uplifting, to say the least, my mind couldn't help but reflect on the years that I've known Cousin Lydia over the years. How she always had a pleasant smile. How she always had a smile that was not pretentious but genuine. A smile that could bring comfort to you. Never had nothing negative to say. Always had something encouraging, something supportive to say to you, even as a child. I love the time that we spent together over the years. Last time I saw her was a few years ago, regretfully. It was at a family reunion at her son Dean's home. And the same Lydia that I knew all my life was just the same that day as well. As I heard her children and her grandchildren testify as to the wonderful life and the wonderful example that she was to them and to her friends and those that she worked with. Hi, Teresa, my wife, Lady T. Glad to have you again with us. It was just wonderful to be there to hear the wonderful testimonies about this wonderful person. And as I listened, and even as I reflected myself in my private moments, as I anticipated going to the ceremony, the celebration of life ceremony, she died a few months ago, but we had this period of time because it was on the eve of her birthday. We celebrated her life on December the 3rd, and she was born on December the 4th, the day after. Her husband was there. Her family was there, both on the Henry side and on her side, the Pritchard side as well. And as I was listening and as I reflected, my mind couldn't help but go back to a sermon that I once preached a long time ago now. It's been so long ago that I can't even remember the gist of it, though I know the significance of the topic. The topic was living on the dash. Living on the dash. And today I want to talk about living on the dash. There are 3 periods of our life that are remembered. We specifically remember them in particular when someone in our lives has passed from the scene. We notice these 3 periods of life in the obituary. In particular, on the grave site, on the tombstone. The first period is called the beginning of life, our birth. For me, it was November the 7th, 1951. That's the first date, if you will, that's placed on the tombstone. The first event that's worth noting, worth remembering, is the day that we're born. The last date hello, Robert, is the date that we die. The date that we leave these mundane shores. The date that we say adieu to all of life's cares and worries. Now, the first date is a date that we really celebrate. It's a celebrational date. The date we were born, a date of great joy, of great anticipation, of a life still to live. The last date is a date that we die. It's filled with sorrow and tears and sometimes remorse and regret. And in between the day that we're born and the unknown date of our death, we don't know that. I know I was born November the 7th, 1951. I don't know what the end date will be. I don't know it. God knows it. I don't know it. And you don't know your end date. You know your beginning date. My wife was born May the 6th, 1964. We don't know the end date. But between the first date and the end date, there's what you call the middle or the dash. It's the proverbial line between how we begin and when we end. And the dash is the period of our life that is most significant, for it's the most extensive part of our lives. Virtually every hour of every day is spent on the dash. We live on the dash. We're born the same. The same method that I was born was the method you were born. It may be a C-section or natural birth or whatever other way it was done, epidural or whatever. But the process is the same for everyone when you're born. And when you die, the process is the same. It may be for different reasons. Heart attack, brain aneurysm, infection of some sort. But the process is the same. Our heart stops beating, our brain stop functioning, and we die. Oh, but in between life and death, there is the thing called the dash. When we first open our eyes, we see a world that's filled with mystery and yet to realize adventures. Good times and bad times and in between times. When we die, it's the end of time as we know it in this world. Whatever we wanted to do, whatever we wish we could have done, whatever we should have done, all ends the day that we die. Our life is lived on the dash. What have you done while you're on the dash? What are you doing? Because we're still on the dash, because there's not a note yet about when you died. You're still here, so you're still on the dash. The wonderful thing about the dash is that no matter what thing we didn't do, no matter what thing we wish we could take back and we regret doing, as long as we're on the dash, we can get it right. As long as we're on the dash, no matter what missed opportunities we think we had, can be realized as long as we're on the dash. It is while we're on the dash that the greatest achievements will be accomplished and the greatest failures. Failures that will virtually bring us to the brink of defeat. We've been knocked down on the dash. But we don't have to be knocked out on the dash. We've had failures, oh yes, on the dash. But we don't have to be defeated while we're on the dash. Just keep in mind, while you're down, you're still on the dash. And when you get up, you're still on the dash. The only thing that matters is how you get up and what you do afterwards. I'm so glad that I'm still on the dash. My birth is over. That happened way back in 1951. My death is yet to come. Your death is yet to come. I know everyone has a birth date, whether it's in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. Somewhere in between those 12 months. And the days, the 365 days that fall between them. We were born. And somewhere in those 12 months, somewhere in those 365 days, this life will come to an end. But in the meantime, the in-between time, we're living on the dash. What have you done while you've been on the dash? We can all recount about the things that we regret. We can all recount about the things that were failures. We can all recount about the things that we wish we could have done and we didn't do. We can all be accountable for those things, but we still are on the dash. Don't forget that. Don't forget that fact. That I still have an opportunity to accomplish my purpose and my destiny in this world because I'm still on the dash. Don't let age disqualify you. Don't let age discourage you. Don't let health discourage you. Don't let situations discourage you, finances, or the like. Don't even let past failures discourage you. If you would look at the greatest people in this world, greatest inventors, greatest minds, greatest philosophers, greatest everything, who achieve wonderful things, marvelous things in their lives, it's not come without a cost. It has not come without moments of failures, doubts, fears, apprehension. But through it all, they reminded themselves, it ain't over till it's over. I'm still on the dash. I'm here to be an encouragement to you today. That if you're still on the dash, and I know you are because you're listening to this program. Well, I had an opportunity to get this done. I had an opportunity to make a success of my life. I had an opportunity to open up a door that I've been wanting to open up for years, and something happened. I didn't take advantage of the opportunity. I let the opportunity fall by the wayside, whatever. And so now my chance at success, my chance at fulfilling my destiny in life is over. Don't let the old okie doke fool you. Don't let the old deceiver fool you. You're still alive. The best days may be ahead of you. But you're so interested in regurgitating the events of your past that you cannot see fully and clearly the wonderful destiny that awaits you. In the book of Jeremiah, in the Old Testament of the Bible, chapter 1, verse 5, the Lord tells Jeremiah that from your mother's womb I created you. I had a purpose with you in mind. You were going to be the prophet of the nation. from your mother's womb. Not after you went to prophet school, not after you went to 4 years of college, or after you came upon the earth and you matriculated and you were no. Your purpose, your destiny. Good afternoon, Deidre. What God purposed you to be and what God purposed you to do was already decided in your mother's womb. All this thing called life is to exercise and to do what you have already been purposed to do. To fulfill the purpose. That's all this journey is. Your purpose was already set. Your way was already paved. The plan was already made. All you're doing while you're on the dash is to fulfill the purpose that was created for you even from your mother's womb. And that's good news. Because I know God's purpose wasn't for me to be a failure. I know that. I know that God's purpose wasn't for me to not miss out on my opportunity, to miss out on my purpose, and never to fulfill it. I know that. The Lord said in Jeremiah chapter 29, I know why I created you. It was for a purpose. And not for any evil thing. It wasn't for you to be a failure. I didn't create you to be a loser. I didn't create you because you are now a mistake, and an accident, and an error. I don't care whether you're a child born out of wedlock or not. You're not a mistake. I don't care whether you're in a wheelchair, whether you're deaf, whether you're blind, whether you're Down syndrome or schizophrenia. You're not a mistake. Good afternoon, Mark. You're not a mistake. You're not an error. You're not an accident. You're not an oops. You're a part of God's great design. Realize your purpose. Then fulfill your purpose while you're living on the dash. What have you done while you've been on the dash? Have you let the bad times overwhelm you and you now just sitting there waiting for the dash to turn into the last year of your life? You know, when you were born, you're living on the dash, and the only thing left is the day that you say adieu to this world. But while you're living on the dash, live. While you're living on the dash, live. Don't let past mistakes keep you bogged down in a mind of defeat and depression, fear and anxiety, doubt. Don't let the mistakes of your past keep you from where you were meant to be, even from the foundation of the world. If you're not a mistake, and I'm not a mistake, and we're not a mistake, then that means there has to be a grand purpose for our life. I talked about my cousin who we celebrated her life now that she's gone. And her legacy will live on through her children, her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, and even those great-great-and-great-great-great-grandchildren that never will have known her will know her through the lives that she has touched. Whose life have you touched? What example have you been to someone that they can say, I really admire them? Yes, they were knocked down, they were drug out, but every time I looked up, I saw them get up. Every time they were met with a challenge that seemed to be insurmountable, somehow they found a way. And they conquered. And And they were more than victorious over whatever came into their lives. Moses had a speech impediment. Jacob had a limp. Paul had epilepsy. But we don't remember them for that. We remember Moses as leading 9 million Israelites out of Egypt. We remember Jacob as being the father of the nation of Israel. We remember Paul as being the greatest apostle of them all and took a faith that was meant for the Jew and took it to the Gentile, and now everyone professes their faith. They're not remembered. They're not noted because of what they didn't have. They're remembered for what they did and what they accomplished with what they had. You're on the dash like they're on the dash. Everybody is on the dash. Everyone who has ever lived, those who are living, and those who will live on the dash. And what you accomplish and how you thrive and how you press on in spite of. Paul said, I haven't apprehended you yet, but I'm going to keep on pressing on. And then in 1 Timothy, he says, 2 Timothy, he says, I fought a good fight. Now I've finished the course. Life is a battle. It's not meant to be an easy task to live. It wasn't meant to be a rose garden every day of every hour of every moment. Ecclesiastes says there's a time for laughter and there's a time for tears. There's a time for joy and there's a time for sorrow. There's a time for peace and there's a time for war. To everything there is a season. My sister was on her program today and she said, I want to ask everybody on the show what they want to do this Christmas. What special thing do they want to do? And I answered her by way of text mail. I said, you know what I want to do this Christmas? During this Christmas holiday or even Christmas Day, maybe. It don't matter how the Lord would have me to do it. I want to touch somebody's life. Someone who's homeless. Someone who's going to really be alone on Christmas. Someone who's disabled. Physically, developmentally, mentally challenged. I want to touch their life somehow. You know, we share with one another, and so we should, families and all the rest, but, I mean, I'm going to give to my family no matter what time of the year it is. I'm going to give to them if they need, if I'm able to do it, I want to help in any way I possibly can, and they will for me. But what about that person that is homeless? We've been there, my wife and I have been homeless on Christmas. Both of us had physical disabilities at the time. I had fallen down, naturally I would have had cerebral palsy. I had fallen down the stairs and it created a worse chaotic trauma for my body. Put me in a wheelchair, yet we were still on the street. Wife had lupus, had to go out to work. She couldn't even stand long on the job, and she had to end the job. I mean, because she couldn't fulfill the responsibility. She could do the job, but her physical strength was not enough to continue her doing that job. But through it all, people came that we didn't know would come. The ones that helped us weren't the ones that we thought would help us. Oh yes, some family came, and I thank God for them. But there were others who came that I had no real relationship with them. Not on that level. Yet there they were to help us. I mean, one person came during the holidays, and they didn't come with no big gift, but they came with donuts. They ate the donuts. Brought me some orange juice, because I don't drink coffee, and brought my wife some coffee, and we had a good old time. That was our Christmas. People that we didn't anticipate being there for us were there. And sometimes the ones that we thought would be there weren't there at all. Couldn't find them. But they made the most of their time living on the dash. We hear all kind of challenges. The water, cold water challenge, the ice cube water challenge, this, and mannequin challenge. That. All kind of challenges. Well, I'm going to make my own challenge this year. I challenge you to do something for somebody in this world. I challenge you in these next few weeks. Christmas is on a Sunday this year, I understand. But before Christmas comes, before we start decorating trees and breaking out the gifts and tearing the packages off the gift for ourselves, and watching those who already have enough take the packages off their gifts, find some time in these next few weeks. We have about 20 days left. In those 20 days, find somebody. He said like that. That little mannequin there. He just said you like that. But find somebody, dear hearts. Find somebody that needs a kind word, a warm, hot meal, just a little present you can get them. A pair of socks or whatever you can afford to do. It's not about how much. It's about thinking about somebody else. Then you'll be surprised how worthwhile your time on the dash can be. One of the greatest moments of my life, some of the greatest moments of my life, rather, have been when I was helping somebody else, even when I didn't have. It still made me feel, I remember one time my wife and I were going to a car wash location. And we got the car washed. It only cost, I think, about $2 or $3. And this man who I knew had not lived, who did not have much, I believe he was homeless the way he was dressed. Deidre said, challenge accepted. That's right, Deidre. Find yourself somebody. I talked to my sister. We're going to do something. Amir, and I know Teresa will join us with it because that was her ministry anyway. Shelters and other things like that. We're going to do this. But this man that I was talking about came up with his dirty rag. That's why I say he wasn't, but I let him dry the car off. Now keep in mind, the wash cost about $3. But the Lord said, give him 10. Give him 10. Now he did his best, and the rag was dirty. So he was doing the windows, they smeared and all that kind of stuff. But I said, I don't care. I got the little liquid in there. I'll just put the windshield on, put the liquid on, put the windshield. It'll get clear again. Lord said, give that man $10. And I gave it to him. I think that's almost what? That's 2 times more. Yeah, well, actually 3 times more than what the wash cost. But he said, give it to him. And I gave him $10. Gave him 2 $5 bills. And the way that man looked at it, even today, so many years later, I know it had to be 10, maybe 12 years later, It still fills my heart with appreciation to God. That's what I feel like. I appreciate you telling me to do that, Lord. I appreciate you telling me to do that. It was around Christmas time. It was cold at that time, so it wasn't blistery cold because we washed the car, but it was chilly, very cold, really. It was cold for being out there doing that. And he cried, and it made me cry, and Teresa had tears in her eyes, and I mean, this was just a great, great feeling. He was just so appreciative. $10. No, we didn't have a lot of money. We worked at a school. It was no public school. It was a private school, so we didn't get much. Church school at that. But he told me to do it, and when I did it, I could not have appreciated the Lord more for touching my heart and leading me to do that because of the response of that man. Oh, there have been many, many examples of that. I remember one when I was a pastor in Georgetown, Delaware, and there was a minister whose, actually his father established the church that he had come out of. But he had become blind in the meantime during his life, and he was forced to use a seeing eye dog. The church that he was going to, the church that his father actually had established, did not want him to bring the seeing eye dog into the sanctuary in fear that it was going to cause some chaos and confusion within the service. So he called me and said, Reverend Scott, would you mind me coming over to your church? You know I have a seeing eye dog. Would you mind me bringing him to the service? And I said to the man, my brother, I forget his name now, Elder, I forget his last name, back in the early 90s. I said, my brother, I would be a hypocrite to say for you not to come with your dog. Come on. And the man brought himself and his dog. And there was no need to fear or no need to have any moments of pause. That dog was very well mannered. That dog was tame. And that dog was very much on his job. Didn't whimper, didn't bark, nothing. Didn't move around, didn't even try to move around. He sat there, just there at the heel of his master, waiting for him to do his bidding. And when he had to go to the bathroom, then the dog would get up, take him there, bring him back, and he and his master would sit back in the seat. No disturbance while I preached, no disturbance during the choir singing, no disturbance at all. And he asked me, Reverend Scott, do you mind if I come back? And I said, you and your dog will always be welcome here. I've always had a heart for the underdog. That's been my journey on the dash. A heart for the underdog. Have I always been right on the dash? No. Have I always lived right on the dash? No. Have I always made the right decisions? No. Have I always done the right things? No. But there have been moments on the dash, while I was living on this dash, that I wouldn't exchange for all the money in the world. Because nothing has made me more contented, more fulfilled, feeling like there was purpose really to my life, than the moments that I paused and tried to help somebody along the way. That has always made me feel good. Hello, Willard. Oh, Darby and Sharon Hill, friend for that matter. Been friends for years and years and years. Went to school together. Good seeing you again, too. Living on the dash, my hearts. We're all living on the dash. What are you doing while you're on this dash? How many times have you been knocked down and then gotten up? How many times have you shown kindness and love and tenderness and generosity and compassion and empathy for someone else in this world? How many times have you chosen to forgive or not to hold grudges? How many times have you let go of the anger and the resentment that you may have towards somebody? Just let it go and live the purpose of your life. How many of you gotten up from being knocked down and gotten up again when you were knocked down again? As long as you're living on the dash, it's never too late. As long as you're living on the dash, all things are possible. Living on the dash, where your character is shaped. Living on the dash where your destiny is fulfilled. Living on the dash where all of your dreams can come true. While we're on the dash, let's get rid of the prejudices of life. Ableism, racism, sexism, all the phobias and all the other isms out there. Let them go. Reach out and touch somebody. Reach out and love somebody. Make the most out of your moments while you're on the dash. It's not about houses and land and cars and cash in the bank. They may be icing on the cake for some, but they're not the cake. The cake is what you make of your life. How you treat one another. Christ himself said, this is how you're going to know that you're my disciples. This is how they're going to know you're my disciples. That you love one another. That you care for one another. That you reach out and touch somebody. Bring a smile to their hearts. Bring joy to their life. And I say it again as I challenge you in these next 20 days before Christmas comes. Actually, Christmas will be on the 20th day, but the 19 days preceding it. Bring Christmas, the Spirit of Christ, into the life of somebody. Well, I'm not a Christian. I'm a Muslim. You can still bring the Spirit of Christ. Yes, you can. I just told you how. Love somebody. Don't have to be a Christian to love somebody. Be tender-hearted and kind. Don't have to be a Christian per se to be tender-hearted and kind. Show empathy. You don't have to be a certain religion or a certain faith or anything like that to show those attributes of our humanity. We so often are drummed in and filled up with seeing the images on the news and in the newspapers and on the internet of humanity being so destructive and so evil and so corrupt. We forget that humanity also can be kind and generous and tender and loving too. We don't see that on the 6 o'clock news. We don't see that on the 11 o'clock news. All we see is somebody shooting somebody, somebody bombing some country, somebody doing this or that, saying something evil and mean to somebody else. But if it wasn't for somebody being kind, we wouldn't be here. You wouldn't be where you are unless somebody opened up their hearts and gave you an opportunity to become what you have become and to do what you're doing and what you have done. Somebody had to show you some kind of concern, some kind of love, some kind of compassion, some kind of understanding, giving you a chance when you didn't deserve a chance, giving you a second chance when you sure enough didn't deserve that. Somebody came along and reached out and helped you get up from the muck and mire of your life. And hopefully you've done that for somebody else along the way. Like Christ said, but somebody other than your father and your mother and your son and your daughter and your brother and your sister, somebody else. Hopefully you did something good for somebody else other than those that you're supposed to do good for. Because the truth of the matter, we're supposed to do good for everyone. Remember this old story about the Good Samaritan? Jewish man was beaten, left for dead. A priest came by and saw him and went on the other side. A Levite came by and saw him. Now, these are kinsfolk. He's a Jewish man. Levi is a member of the priestly order. The priest is another member of the priestly order of the Jewish synagogue. They both saw him, went on the other side. The Good Samaritan. Now, if you know the history of it between the Samaritans and the Jews, they were distant cousins, but the Jews looked at them as though they were like half-breeds, and they were not full Jews. They looked down upon them, and it caused resentment between the Jews and the Samaritans, one versus the other. If anybody should have walked on the other side and forgotten the plight of the man, it should have been the Samaritan, but he didn't do that. The Samaritan saw the need of that beaten, broken, near dead man. He didn't ask for his pedigree. He didn't ask for his racial identity. He saw someone in need, and he made the most of his time on the dash. The story goes that he picked the man up. Helped him with his wounds, put him on his mule, took him to a near inn and told the man to get the finest doctor so he can treat the man and bring him back to his well condition. And he said, if he has incurred any other finances than the ones I'm giving you now, when I come back through, I will make good on it. And then the Lord turned to those that he was telling the story to, and he asked them, now, who was the neighbor? And they said the Samaritan was the neighbor. And he said, therefore then, you be that neighbor too. You be that neighbor too. I'm telling you, as we anticipate the Advent season, as we anticipate Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and the birth of the Christ child, remembering his birth, as we remember all of that, and as we hustle and bustle through the stores trying to buy the biggest and the best and the newest and the rest, don't forget the real reason for the season. The Lord said it. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. His coming upon earth, he too had to live on the dash, didn't he? He had a birth date. We don't know when it was. Most scholars, including myself, don't believe it was on December the 25th. But whatever it was, he was born. And we know that he died. He died on April the 15th in the year 29 AD. But in between, as he was living on the dash, he made the most of every moment. Did he have temptation? Oh, yes, he did. Did he weep? Yes, he wept. Yes, he did. Did he doubt his mission and why it was necessary? Yes, he had his Gethsemane moment. Yes, he did. But he also had other moments on that dash as well. How he preached sermons and spoke words that would change the world forever. How he worked miracles in lives that will be touched forever. Not just physically, but more importantly, spiritually. How he walked on water, fed 5,000. With just a few fish and a couple of loaves of bread. I'm here to tell you, dear hearts, let us make the most of the time that we have on the dash. Because when you think about it, it's really a very short time. My cousin lived to be older than 90 years old. Her mother, my Aunt Jessie, lived to be over 100 years old. But in the scheme of things, in comparison to eternity, we're on the dash just for a little while. So let us make the most of our time living on the dash. For you see, when all said and done, the period of our lives that we spend living on the dash, and what we do while we're living on the dash, will ultimately determine where we spend eternity. I want to read this poem to you by Linda Ellis. It's only an excerpt of the poem. It is entitled The Dash. I read of a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstones from the beginning to the end. He noted that the first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between the years. For that dash represents all the time that are spent here on earth. And now only those who love them will know that line and its worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. The Dash by Linda Ellis. We're on the dash right now, every one of us. If you're listening to this program today, you're on the dash. There's only 3 periods: birth, death, and the dash. You've been born, you haven't died, which means you're on the dash. Make the most of it. Take the time that you have right now. And whatever you got to get right, get it right. Whatever you got to get it straight. And then live a life worth living while you're living on the dash. God bless you. See you on Friday. Have a wonderful and blessed week. And remember, life and living is on the dash. See you on Friday at 3 p.m. Remember, my wife's program is also on Friday at 7 p.m., Turning Up the Gospel with Lady T. Keep us in your prayers as we keep you in ours. as we move from day to day in faith. Talk to you soon. Bye.